Hello and welcome to Contact Sport. I'm Paul Kennedy. This morning we will analyse the US Tennis Open and we'll pay tribute to a quiet breed of amateur sports men and women who've survived another cold winter.
Minutes of kind of pain, and once you get over that, the experience is pretty sensational.
But firstly to the World Basketball Championships, and the United States of America has won the gold medal for the first time since 1994. The Americans beat Turkey 81-64. Kevin Durant, the 21-year-old star of the tournament, shot another 28 points in the final. Let's look at some highlights.
Into the lane and puts it up and over Omer Asik. Upset by Greece 4 years ago, didn't win the gold. They had to settle for bronze. Turkoglu from the corner, and Hato puts Turkey into the lead. Derrick Rose over to Durant, long three, good. The Americans come away with it. Durant for three, and 6 straight points for the United States. And the American bench empties onto the court. Double. They leave Lamar Odom wide open across the United States. They've taken some hits in international basketball over the years, but now with the Olympic gold medal, and now with the World Championship, the FIBA World Championship, the United States will be the #1 team in the FIBA World Rankings. Better and better.
Now, Mark Webber has said he will rely on consistency to try and win the World Championship in Formula One. It's paying off. He finished only 6th in Italy, but Lewis Hamilton didn't finish, so Webber leads the overall race. Fernando Alonso is also now in contention with his victory at Monza.
He was on pole position. He took it yesterday, and rounding the Parabolica, what a feeling for Fernando Alonso. It's Forza Ferrari, Forza Fernando. He wins the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, and the championship challenge is back on.
Fantastic feeling. Obviously, very tough race with very strong opposition today, with fantastic drive from Jenson, and we tried to put both Ferraris in the first 2 positions, and after the start, it was difficult with Jenson's good start and good pace. But I think did a fantastic job the team again with a fantastic pit stop, and thanks to them we are sitting here.
Let's talk tennis now, and the men's final of the US Open has been postponed for a day due to rain. It gives us a chance to preview that match between Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic. And joining me now is Steve Pearce, a commentator with ABC Grandstand. Steve, why don't they have a roof in New York?
That is an extremely good question, and one that they'll be pondering at the moment, Paul. It really, out of the main venues, I know France doesn't have a roof, but the clay there sort of allows that it's not so much of a problem when you get some light rain, but when you do get rain in New York, because of the lines, it makes it almost unplayable. So it's a reason that...
They've got one in Wimbledon now as well. So.
They've got one at Wimbledon, they've had one here for over 20 years in Australia, so it's something they've got to look at. But the trouble is Arthur Ashe Stadium is such a vast stadium, the biggest in the world of the centre courts, that unfortunately with rain, no play. And it's good news for Novak Djokovic, because he was backing up after a tough semi-final against Roger Federer. He now gets a little bit more time to prepare for the match against Rafael Nadal.
Well, let's talk about that semi-final between Djokovic and Federer. Do you think it was the match of the tournament so far?
I think in the circumstances it was. I mean, enormous pressure on Novak Djokovic to deliver. He'd lost the last 3 years prior to that to Roger Federer in the final and 2 semis. So no one really expected him to deliver, although, I mean, the third seed that he is, he always on paper had a good chance, but it was such a seesawing match with Djokovic getting away to a decent start. He came out firing, and Federer took that first set with some wonderful tennis himself, although he was a bit patchy, certainly on his first serve. He was a little bit all over the place, and Djokovic just never gave up. He always had the belief in himself. He's been playing some great tennis over the fortnight, Djokovic just produced on some big points, and he looked very comfortable at the net as well when he came in. He had some booming forehands, and his double-handed backhand, which is a superb shot, which has been a bit patchy over the year, was really playing well, although Federer still, when it was asked, could produce some big shots as well. That was the strange thing about Federer's game, in a way, that he still played some of his absolute best tennis, but his first serve was down around 46% at points, so Djokovic there delivering on match point. You can see what it meant to him to win there at Flushing Meadows, and to finally beat Federer. It was just an enormous achievement, and I suppose that was the problem for him, coming out of that on what they call Super Saturday, and then the men have to back up the next day for the final. It's tough, and now he gets an extra day to prepare for the match against Nadal, who really breezed through against Mikhail Yuzny in his match.
What have you noticed of Nadal then? Of course, he hasn't won at the US Open. It's the only major he hasn't won, so he's in good shape.
He's in extremely good shape. I mean, the thing about Nadal is he's come into the US Open this year finally with some really good fitness. As you know, he's struggled with his knees the last couple of years, and it's at the end of a very long year, the US Open, and every time he's turned up he said he hasn't been quite right. He said this year he is right. He's looking leaner, his serve is much stronger. He hasn't dropped a set the entire tournament to get through to the final, so if the match had been played today, he would have been hot favourite. It probably evens up a little bit more now with Novak Djokovic, and Djokovic's record on hard court against Nadal isn't too bad.
Okay.
It's a much better record than he's got on other surfaces, so it does shape up, although it'll be a strange atmosphere playing on a Monday now in New York, but it does shape up as a much closer match probably than it would have been today.
Okay. Nadal's year so far has been phenomenal. If he wins at the US Open, he's won 3 of the 4. That's as good as Federer in his prime, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, Nadal is definitely the premier player on tour at the moment. I mean, the aura around Federer has gone, much as it has from Tiger Woods from golf, and the difference in Nadal now and against the rest of the players, when he's fit, he just looks like he's capable of beating anyone on any surface.
Yep.
Big test for him, though. Of course, he has never won, and he'd just become the 7th man in history if he can complete the career Grand Slam, which is just an enormous achievement if he can.
OK, let's move to the women's, and Kim Clijsters. She's unbeaten since 2003. What is it about the Arthur Ashe Stadium that she loves so much?
Well, she definitely loves the hard courts there. There's no question about that. I mean, there were a couple of injury-interrupted years, and also she did go into that couple-of-year hiatus when she left the game to marry and start a family. But she hasn't lost there since 2003. In the last 2 years, she came in as a wild card last year, won the tournament, came back as defending champion and second seed this year. Had a couple of tough matches en route. She had a tough game against Stosur, and then she had another tough game against Venus, but really she absolutely obliterated Zvonareva.
Stosur and Williams would have been better finalists here, wouldn't they?
I think no question about that. I mean, no one would ever say that Zvonareva hasn't got the ability, but she doesn't have the temperament in the big finals at the moment. Kim Clijsters just destroyed her, much as Serena did at Wimbledon as well, and Zvonareva has a lot of work to do to work out how to handle the occasion of a major final, because Clijsters was just way too strong for her.
And very briefly, the final word on Sam Stosur. What's the missing ingredient for her?
Just the ability to play one big point in a crunch situation. I think that's all she was away from beating Clijsters, and if she'd beaten Clijsters, she may well have got through to the final. She made the final at the French. She's getting closer and closer. She had a great win over Elena Demencheva, and it's her best US Open by far. She's just got to do it in a hurry now, because she's getting on, and as far as tennis terms, she's really got to kick on next year. Maybe it'll be in Melbourne at the Australian Open.
All right, we'll be cheering for her then. Thanks for your time, Steve, this morning.
Pleasure, Paul.
Now, Australian swimmers are preparing to defend their title as the best in the Commonwealth, but today we'd like to recognise those other swimmers, the ones who get up early in the morning and dip into the bays and ocean beaches around the nation, despite the weather. To find out just how tough it can be, Andrew Arthur joined them.
It's just before sunrise, and while most people are only just getting up and getting ready for their day, a group of die-hard swimmers is only a few steps away from diving into the near ice-cold waters of Port Phillip Bay.